So the dash downhill, and well, you've got to say, Luke Stapleford, Jake Dixon has just set the fastest lap of the race, James, 1:32.291. I just wonder if that means that that young man is on the move. It's not as fast as he did yesterday. He did a 1:31.6 yesterday.
You know what? He did a similar sort of thing yesterday. He dropped back a little bit. Just took him a while just to get in his game. And then when he came on song beautifully. And he's doing the same thing now. He's just pulling away from Wilson and Ride and Irwin, and he's just getting his groove in. Remember, he's on a Triumph as well, just like the bike in front of Stapleford, and looks so comfortable on it. You know, was hampered sometimes last year with a few problems, whereas this year, you know, he's looking like him and the Smith Triumph are going to be a real package to be reckoned with. Yeah, as is Stapleford.
Kyle Wright there was so keen to find a way inside Wilson. He tried on the previous lap to go at Goddard's and he snatches it back. This time he does make the move through into third place. So Stapleford, Dixon and Kyle Wright are at the front as they cross the line. Kyle Wright, very much the Supersport class rookie here, running now in third place ahead of the two Gearlink Kawasaki's who are backing their way in at the end of the straight there. And Andy Reid just about holding the pace of the men in front of him, but ahead of his teammate James Rispoli.
Kyle Wright might well be the youngest, one of the youngest at 17, and you know, rookie to this class, but he's just set the fastest lap of the race, and you know, he looks to be, since he's got past Wilson, he is already in the middle of bridging that gap. And look at Irwin just come underneath his teammate there, Ben Wilson. A nice tight move just as they peel here into McLean's.
That was a pretty good move through Starkey's, though. Ben Wilson then suffering at the hands of his younger teammate, and the two Gearlink Kawasaki's now locked together there in fourth and fifth places. And Andy Reid will be the next man who will be fancying his chances of getting on terms with them. Fastest lap for Kyle Wright, 1:32.13. That means that he's closed the gap a bit on the long-time leader, and Kyle Wright is coming after those two. There's Speedy Reedy just in the background in black behind those two, and Rispoli having made a good. Rispoli was confident he could come through from where he was on the grid.
Did you see Irwin then? He was juddering and he had it completely sideways, just hooking it in as he slid it into to the Melbourne Loop. This is going to be a quick lap of Kyle Wright's, I think.
It is.
The third bike in the picture, the yellow bike. Yeah, he is closed in. Let's have a little look as he crosses the line.
Could be the first sub at 1:32, and it is 1:31.717. The only guy to dip below the 1:32s, and he does it in style. Kyle Wright there.
And that is just 2/10 off the outright lap record, so that is a good lap.
So once again, the dash through Hollywood and down into Craner Curves, and Kyle Wright not quite as quick down there as those two tries as Jake Dixon moves for the lead and gets in time inside Luke Stapleford by less than a wheel's length as they go.
It's not over yet. Right over the curves as well. That was brave. But look at Wright, he's having a sniff as well.
We're only on the sixth lap of 18 here, so just approaching 1/3 race distance in the second of the Motorpoint British Supersport Championship races of the weekend.
Now, it's the first time that Dixon has led all weekend in anything, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do now. Now he's got a clear track and he can use the space and the lines that he wants. At the moment, you can see Stapleford's just to his outside, but he'll be quite happy with that. He can defend it from there.
Jake Dixon finished 8th on the Appleyard Macadam Dukes and Yamaha last year. Had quite a few, if you remember, really mysterious electrical problems that beset the bike on several occasions. But still ended up making the championship. He's got very wide, and this really lets give Stapleford a chance to get through. But the Triumph gets the power on from that sweeping, unintended line and holds on to the lead. Across the line now, this is going to be interesting because it looks to me as if the Gearlink Kawasaki's have begun to close up now that Kyle Wright has crossed the leader, caught the leaders, and that was a 1:32.2 for Irwin in fourth place. He has set his fastest lap of the race to claw his way back into contention. Ups a daisy, and that doesn't look terribly good for the number 87 machine. That's Vito Iannuzzo, the veteran of World Superbike and World Supersport racing, the Italian on the Qingdao Hampshire MV Augusta. He and Luke Jones are taking those MVs to the factory and then on to Misano to try and sort a few things out with that troubled bike next week, in fact, before we go to Brands Hatch.
Yeah, well, if they can give him anything like they can give
Cluzel
in the World Supersport, then yeah, that would be a journey well worth doing.
And this is really closed up now. They've bunched right up here at the front as Luke Stapleford and Kyle Ryde take a look at the inside line there. But Dixon is late on the brakes into Foggies.
And doesn't his bike look comfortable on the brakes there when he's braking late? You know, it just looks a little bit firmer, and it looks like he can just hold a brake later while still keeping it nice on line. It's not backing in too much. It looks like he's got a really good setup there. But all the while, that pace just a fraction off. It's allowed Irwin and Ben Wilson to regroup. Ryde is he's still just coming slightly as well in the back, but not quite there. But then we've got a 5-man battle.
So on to the 7th of 18 laps. This is a pretty long race for the Supersport boys, particularly compared to that 10-lap dash that turned into a 6-lap dash yesterday after the red flags had drawn an early halt to proceedings. So on the 8th lap of 18, they now begin to enter fairly unknown territory here at Donington Park. Jake Dixon is a young man who's, he says it was inevitable he'd get interested in motorbikes. He said when you've got a dad who was a sidecar champion, European champion, world champion, and also won championships on 2 wheels, it would be pretty inevitable he'd be interested in motorcycles from a young age.
Yeah, no, you'd think so. And oh, here comes no Ryde. I could think about it, but didn't quite do it there on Stapleford. No, his dad was an absolutely brilliant, you know, back in the days on you know, the RG 500s as well. As I remember him winning the Paget's ones of those, and an amazing rider. Runs in the family.
Kyle Ryder, pretty amazing rider. Do you see the way he trimmed the curb there on the exit to Coppice? He's really and drifting it with both wheels. A lad who, well, I suppose he started riding mini motors when he was 6, James, so even though he's only 17, he's had 11 years of experience on tarmac. And
he's already a double British champion at 17.
Yes.
So, no, he is a real talent. And, you know, this is a big step coming up to the Supersport. And, you know, he's made it with ease. He was impressive in his debut last year for those couple of races, you know, getting in the top 8 and for him to come in here and already start. And more importantly, he looks smooth. He always looks calculated. He's not one to, you know, you just feel like the cogs are clicking, like he's giving himself plenty of time to suss out what he wants to do. And that's rare for a 64 as we got there, Chris
Halliwell.
Yeah.
So the Phoenix race team will have to rise from the ashes next time out.
Well,
here he
goes.
goes.
Going to be the front. He's just a bit wide, just keeping a bit too much brake. He didn't want to lose the apex, and down he went.
James, a mishap like that can often be down to the fact that you just get yourself almost a matter of inches offline on the entrance.
Yeah, and definitely when the track's, you know, first race of the year, the track's a little bit green in places. It does get, you know, and there's a line gets cut through. You go a little bit wide like he was. It's dustier, it's dirtier, and there's not the grip there. And, you know, especially when you're still trying to keep the brake on and get it hooked up, you just lose grip and bang, you're down.
Jake Dixon not able to escape the clutches then of Sinopes number 8. Luke Stapleford thinks about, no, he just sits in behind Jake Dixon. He says, of course, we're only on to the 9th of 18 laps, so we're just about at half distance. So there's a lot of racing to be done yet here at Donington Park between this gang.
There's a lot of racing, and once again, just like we saw in the Superbikes, with the temperature having changed slightly, you know, this is going to be the warmest conditions these guys have ridden Donington in. So tyre wear in this latter part of the race is something that will come in. Obviously, they don't wear it as much as a Superbike because they're lighter and they don't have the same power, but you know, it still could be a critical thing.
Dixon leads the way. Guy Martin's just outside the points. He's in 17th place on the second of the Smiths triumphs. And he's behind some of those battling Evo bikes. Collier and Neal 10th and 11th, and then Sam Coventry 13th ahead of Josh Day. We've got Day, Pett, Estmont, and then Guy Martin in 17th place. The yellow there denotes the Evo machines. As we look back over, and this is the sort of gang that Guy Martin is. I love it when he said to you his aim for the race was probably to get to the finish, James.
Well, I like the way I asked in the first question. He spoke about his hair for like a minute.
There he is, Guy Martin, trying to peer through that great mop of Lincolnshire hair beneath that black helmet in those black Dainese leathers as he drives downhill, in amongst, like, really buried in amongst some really you've got to say, fairly aggressive youngsters. There's Bjorn Estmont just ahead of him. There's Freddie Pett, Day and Curran, and Phil Wakefield just behind him there on the Sandbach scrap metal services bike. Look at that, a big move ride, number 57, Levi Day, downhill. He moves through into 12th place. And Danny Webb's in that mix as well, look. Danny Webb, number 66, experienced Grand Prix rider.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, these guys having a good scrap, but they are like 3-4. Oh, Stapleford's made a mistake at the loop there. You can see he's lost the space, and he might lose one more from... Oh, yes, he does. Yes, he does. Look, you don't have to ask. Kyle Wright, he's going to lift him up.
Kyle Wright lifts up Glenn Irwin big time, almost tips him into Stapleford.
Do you know what? He didn't have a choice there in the end. He had the right move. If he had done anything else, but let the brakes off and go in, he was going to bring them all down. So that was sometimes, yeah. Don't get me wrong, it's harsh, and Glenn Irwin was the big loser, but he was committed then to outbraking Stapleford, and then he was caught in a bit of no man's land. He had to let the brakes off, had to beat them to the apex, and that way they all three got round it. But that has given this man, Jake Dixon, a real little advantage.
Well, Jake Mason being absolutely delirious with his second place yesterday, but look at this, he could go one better. He's got Kyle Wright now in pursuit on the Yamaha, chased by Stapleford and Glenn Irwin. The battle behind them for 5th place involving Ben Wilson and Andy Reid there.
Yeah, and that is the battle.
Oh,
that's a nice little lead. That's 1.3 seconds. Yeah, 1.3 seconds at the moment. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll see if Kyle Wright can do anything to close that back in, but he won't know he's got that breathing space yet. Here comes Stapleford. He's having a look, but no, can't quite make it stick.
I think Kyle Wright, with the empty track in front of him, could just actually pull back the race leader at this point. He's been setting some pretty impressive laps. Let's see. But of course, if he gets involved in this, that's not going to help his lap times one little bit. So as these guys start to chop one another around and about, and Jake Dixon just will maintain that breathing space at the front.
Yeah, well, this time round, his team will have got it on the board. You know, +1, which is always, as a rider, is lovely to see. You know, when you know you've got a second, so you can actually stop worrying about taking any defensive lines. You take the exact, fastest, best line that you possibly can. And, yeah, that is nice.
They're giving him +4, which is just a faint exaggeration of +1. Well, actually, it said the gap was 1.3 as they went across the line, James, nearer what you had estimated.
Well, I think it was might have been 0.4, just giving him a half second. Not, you know, they didn't want to give him sort of too much, but you know, he's got even more of that. Oh, that's bad. That's
Dean Hitwell.
That could that is. Well, we'll have to have a little look on that. It looks that's going into the S's, I think.
Yeah, I think he's on.
Sorry,
he's off the track.
No, it's off the track. Oh, sorry, it's off the track. The final corner. Sorry, it's Goddard's. It was a really weird angle. You don't ever see the camera, but luckily that's offline, so it won't affect anything. So that was unlucky because he had a good ride yesterday as well.
Yeah, so Dean Hitwell then goes out, number 74 on the CDH Racing Triumph, and at the front, Jake Dixon. Look at this. Now then, I'll tell you who's riding impressively hard, Glenn Irwin, because there are moments when he's losing the front of that Kawasaki and picking it back up again, and look, snaking around on the brakes, going for the inside line on Kyle Wright. And not only has he got to control the Kawasaki, keep him where he wants on track, he's got to make sure that Wright stays put behind him. But Kyle will come straight back on the inside into Goddard. He's done that before to Glenn Irwin. He does it again.
Yeah, he's so confident there as well. A little foot angle. He knows exactly how much feel, how much grip he's got, and you know, it's very easy to catch at Goddard. It's a little bit bumpy on the way in, it's slightly off camber, so it's a very, very measured move.
The fastest lap of Jake Dixon's race, James, at the front as we watch this again. Oh, and that's what happened. That's how Dean Hitwell pitched himself off in that awkward downhill entrance to Goddard's. Jake Dixon, fastest lap of his race, James, 1:32.099. He's just done it.
Yeah, when you start, as I say, you start to thrive on that sort of gap. When you start to see it increase a bit as well, and this will be just what he wants to see. And you can see in front of him there, he's just going to start coming through the back markers as well. So that could be really handy on a track like Donington. You start putting those between them, or they catch them wrong through the S's at the loop. So, you know, he's going to have the chance to get through quite ruthlessly and with a bit of time.
So what he's looking like is he might go from, as he just a quick glance over the shoulder there of right shoulder for Matt Coles on the MCM Services Triumph. Just allows plenty of room, bless him, lets everybody come through. And this lad, well, after following his first rostrum up, to follow it up with a race win, that's progress of a big kind, isn't it, here at Donington?
Yeah, it looks great, that Smith's Triumph as well. I really love the colours of it. You know, the blue and white, it just looks really classy, very sharp, easy to pick out.
I've actually started to see their wagons on the motorways as well, looking equally splendid. And you think, oh look, there it is. There's that familiar logo. As we go round Goddard's then in second place, Luke Stapleford, yesterday's sprint race winner. Third place, number 77, Kyle Wright. Fourth place, number 69, Glenn Irwin.
Yeah, Glenn Irwin just set his fastest lap of the race, as did Dixon again. So Dixon is circulating. Again, it was only just a fraction of a second, but another fastest lap of the race for Dixon. So the leader doing everything he can. That lead is up to 1.5 seconds, and they're all circulating to a muchness, really, time-wise.
So Dixon, who turned 19 on the 15th of January, lad from Dover, about as far down into the southeastern corner of the United Kingdom as you could get. And I only ever saw his dad race once, and that was in an international supermoto race at Lyddon, which of course is very much their local track down in Kent. Meanwhile, this battle going on for the Evo Championship as they come storming down into Redgate. Number 57, Levi Day there. There's several days. It's very mixed up, because you've also got Josh Day, the Cirencester lad, on the Ruby Racing Triumph in there as well. So we've got several days in this race. Well, two of them anyway. Down the long drop there of Craner Curve. This the battle for 11th place. The leader of the Evo class, Joe Collier, lies up the track ahead of these guys in 9th place. But this involves Marshall Neal, Levi Day, Josh Day, Freddie Pett, Bjorn Estment, Paul Curran's in there, Guy Martin towards the back of it there, just ahead of Sam Coventry now.
Yeah, these guys, as we say, just circulating sort of 3-4 seconds off what the leaders are doing. Obviously, the Evo bikes are in a lesser state of tune than the actual full Supersport bikes.
You would imagine that Guy Martin's quite enjoying this, isn't he? He's got a grandstand view of these lot as we watch number 57, Levi Day, just push back past his namesake once again. So the guy from Mount Gambier in Australia on the CPE Motorsport Kawasaki back into that 11th place.
Guy Martin there, as you can see, the number 5. Obviously, he's riding an identical bike to Jake Dixon, who's leading the race. There's Jake Dixon, the man we're talking about, and that gap looks like it's come down a bit. It has. It's come down by 0.3. Carl Ryder 1:31.7, quickest lap of the race on that last lap. So, and that is just a couple of tenths. And Dixon there, a little bit of a slide coming out onto the back straight.
So dropping down the hill, Luke Stapleford is strong in second place, but not as yet able to really make big inroads on that lead. That astonishing style of his, where he lifts the outside leg off the foot peg. It looks alarming every time you see it in close-up like that. Cuts across the bows of the yellow Yamaha. Thou shalt not pass. Yamaha not quite got the grunt up the hill just then to get on terms with the Triumph and go underneath him into Goddard's, as he's been able to do with the Kawasaki of Glenn Irwin.
Yeah, the Triumph obviously a 3-cylinder triple 675 compared to the Yamaha's 600 as well, and that little, you never substitute a bit of CC, just that little bit of extra grunt. And it did win the championship last year, the Smith's Triumph, and the Triumphs have been a really good package in this class. But as you can see with young Carl Ryde, the fours of the Yamaha there and the man behind him, Irwin on the Kawasaki, are both doing well. And this is the other battle, another Kawasaki and another Yamaha.
And Ben Wilson has done really well to keep Andy Reid, last year's Super Stock 600 runner-up, behind him for so long, because that's been quite a squabble.
It has, and now I'll tell you what, that's going to be a hard last lap battle, isn't it, between those two?
This is two aggressive chaps together, you might say. Andy Reid a little bit detuned at the beginning of the weekend, James, because a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of changes you can make to a super sport bike, and feeling like he hadn't really got to grips with it as well as he'd expected to.
Well, I think he's done a fantastic job so far. I think he's put it on the front row. He's running in the top 6, and Ben Wilson is a serious marker in this class, and you can run with him, then you are doing brilliant. And he's just starting off. He's going to take a while to get the bike working. Look at Carl Ryde, just quite late. He's going to go a bit wide. Stapleford try and square it off, use all the track and force him onto the force him wide, which he did. So remember, as we start now, we're going to just be starting the penultimate lap as Jake Dixon crosses the line. Lap 17 they're just beginning with now. So it's these guys. Dixon's just doing everything he can. Let's have a look at that 1.6. So he's got that comfy. That was his fastest lap of the race, Dixon. 1:31.8.
That's his first sub-32 lap. Brilliant.
Yeah,
Brilliant
so
time
he's
to do it.
yeah, it is a great time to do it, but he doesn't need to. He's got a good lead here. And again, there's another back marker he's just about to pass. You can see Dixon there as he slips up the inside. And that's perfect. They're going to hit him. That's perfect for Dixon because the others are going to hit him coming up here, and they should probably just cost him a little bit of time.
Luke Stableford looking loose and quick there as he came round the old hairpin. As I said, their whole team, I mentioned earlier, their whole team and his teammate Sam Hornsey and his team manager, the former Superstock foul winner, Tristan Treacle-Palmer, were having a whale of a time at the Gandhi Indian restaurant in Castle Donington last night. Thoroughly enjoying the fact that they'd won yesterday. It looks like they're going to go 1-2 rather than 2 race wins here as Carl Ride cuts past the back marker and drops down the hill underneath the ghost of the Dunlop Bridge. Yeah. Glenn Irwin still, as you would expect, the Tiger, a man with the nickname the Tiger, hasn't given up on getting onto that rostrum again as he did yesterday. No,
he hasn't yet. I think none of these guys have given up. Obviously, that is they're fighting for second, third and full, so someone is not going to be on the podium, and it makes so much difference when you're riding. But he's got a little bit of work to do at the moment, so I think that Ride and Stableford just look like they're a fraction more comfortable.
Stableford then in second place. Let's check the gap as Dixon crosses the line. Now he's going to lead him 1.7 seconds, and he sets the fastest lap of the race, 1:31.68. Now impressive as that from the 19-year-old who finished 8th in last year's championship. He's just pouring the coals on in the closing stages.
That is very impressive. You know, just over a tenth off the outright lap record, and you know he's got a big lead though now. He can just you know, he's got 1.7 seconds. You know, half a lap left, 3/4 of a lap left. But he's doing a very, very good job there.
And Stableford did a 1:31.77, so he'd actually really hotted his pace up at the same time. So the two triumphs then really resolving this race. Oh, well, he's back marked.
Yeah.
Are they going to be far enough ahead or not?
No. Well, let's have a little look coming out of here. I think he might. I'm not sure the second pack might catch him, but I think he probably will at Goddard's by the looks of it. But it looks like it's probably going to be just about, unless something happens now, it looks like that's about what it's going to be, because I don't think Stableford's got a bit on Ride and Ride's got a bit on Irwin.
And a terrific ride then by the 19-year-old from Dover, who's ever smiling, cheerful. He's going to be smiling even more when he's accomplished this victory, because it looks like those 3 back markers are just sufficiently far ahead to stay out of the way. As they drop into Goddard's, then Jay Dixon will not really need to overtake them. He might be keen to, but he doesn't need to. He rockets out of Goddard's and follows up yesterday's second place with his maiden win in the British